Hello everyone, and welcome to my video on doing a hand sculpt. I thought today I would take a little break from working on my game project and my portfolio and stuff like that to do a little instructional video on something that I had a very hard time kind of getting the hang of or getting into. So as you can see, there's a hand rotating in front of you. This is a hand that I sculpted not too long ago when I was trying to perfect doing hands, because hands are very difficult. They're very anatomical, and I think something that you should probably know how to do if you're going to be doing people when you're modeling. So we'll jump right into Blender and get this started. Okay, so we'll start by opening up a new Blender window here. And I'm just going to delete this cube right here. You can keep the cube if you want, it really doesn't matter. What we're going to do is I'm going to add a plane, just a basic plane. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And I'm going to go into edit mode. I am going to collapse all of those points at the center, and then go into orthographic front view mode. All right, and I do that by pressing 1 on the keyboard, or on the number pad. All right, then I'm just going to press E and extrude up, just a little bit. And then I'm going to press E and extrude again. And then I am going to press E and extrude out. And I'm just going to make a hand shape. Sometimes it's better. Yeah. Oop. Oop. And I'm going to try to make it as close to a hand as possible. Oop. 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 Just kind of keeping things the right size. I'm not too worried about doing joints right now. I just want to make sure that the fingers are all the correct length and that center here goes like that. In fact, you know what, I lied. I might bring this up here. Do another one here. Okay, so I've got this funky looking stick hand. I am going to take this center and I'm just going to put on proportional editing here by clicking that, and I'm going to say connected only because I want this to be very straightforward, and I'm going to just move it on the Y by pressing G for grab and Y for the Y-axis. And I'm going to scale this down a bit and just kind of get it a little bit more concave. And I'm going to move these out and turn off proportional editing. Move the thumb a little bit forward here. I almost wonder if that's coming out a little too far, maybe. All right, and so then I'm going to take this and move forward. Yeah, the thumb's coming out a little bit too much. It's not terribly important. We're just trying to get a nice, nice shape here, and you'll see why in a moment. Bring that back again. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Good stuff. And having the second one here is pretty important, so we'll do that. All right. So we have kind of a skeletal looking hand, which is okay. I'm actually going to bring these back just a little bit, just so we have more of like a relaxed, kind of grippy look. All right, so with that, I am going to go ahead and select all. You don't have to select all, that's just my habit. And we're going to go to Skin, the Skin modifier in our modifiers panel, and you can see it goes crazy. In order to change this, we're going to press Control, or press and hold Control and then A, and we're just going to scale it down a bit. Boop, and you can see we kind of have this weird blocky hand. You'll see some holes and stuff. That's okay, we can fix that by moving stuff around. And let's scale this up with Control A. Got that. Don't like how that's looking. So I'm just going to kind of blind click in here. It's one of these do as I say, not as I do kind of moments, guys. Okay, there we go. And you can just kind of tweak around your hand to see how it goes. I'm going to move that out and this out just a bit, and then this way out. Okay. And we can just kind of move things around based on where they should be anatomically speaking, and scale things up a bit based on what's correct. There we go. Just get a kind of good flow for this hand. It's not going to matter too much, but you want to start yourself with a good base. You don't want to sabotage yourself before you start modeling. No, that's not correct. So you've got this kind of weird blocky sausage hand with weird topology. We're not going to go for that for long. What we are going to do is we're going to put a subdivision surface modifier in there. And we're going to do that, make sure that it goes, no, after, I'm sorry. Make sure that it goes after. And then we're going to have to move things around just a little bit more, just to make sure that there are no weird creases or anything like that. There we go. Oh well. Okay, so basic hand shape. Nothing to really be too proud of, but it's good. It's a good start. So we'll go back into object mode, and we will apply the skin, and apply the subdivision, which is great. Then we're going to go up into sculpt mode. Oh my gosh, so far away. And now you see we have this kind of subdivided piece of garbage. But that's okay. A lot of these creases and stuff will go away when we go click Remesh, and I'll put it for now at 0.001. So you'll see in the remesh it'll kind of fudge over those seams a little bit here. Alright, and I am just going to take the nice smoothing brush and I'm just going to smooth this out a little bit. Boop. Is it great? No, it's not. Will it be? Yes, it will. Okay, so now we have this kind of weird froggy hand. Alright, and so now we can let the sculpting begin here. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to establish a basic shape. So we'll just kind of spread out these finger webs, shrink them where they need to be shrinking, and maybe up it a little bit just to kind of give it more shape, because hands are very kind of very complicated things. Just kind of give it a basic once over here. But we want to make sure that it kind of indicates a bone structure, something that looks good, anatomically speaking. I keep making this too long. And right now, the tool that I'm using is just the elastic deform tool. We really want to mind the bones in the hand. Where the bones are, just kind of staying aware of where things will be. Kind of deforming it down, but it'll be good, I promise. And feel free to look at your own hand and just kind of use it as a reference, because it's probably the easiest and best reference you could possibly have. I'm going to put a little groove up here, because that's usually where the pad of your hand rests. Just give ourselves a nice little opportunity to define some things here. Make sure you're giving your thumb a nice amount of space. Sometimes we don't really think about the thumb. The thumb is an important part of the hand, and it goes down quite a bit. Like there's quite a bit of space right here, kind of more than you would expect. And again, right now, there's going to be a lot of stuff that we'll have to do to make this a realistic hand. But we are just trying to refine the shape at this point, this juncture. And this is another thing that I've actually been guilty of, is not minding the finger shape, the way that the palm kind of goes up and down. Actually, I'll do that because the pinky does drop a bit, and it does have a little kind of, I don't know what you would call that, a round top to it. So this is lower and this is lower, and then the gap in the middle. And so we don't want to, oh, that thumb feels stunted. Yeah, that's another thing, is do not stunt your thumb. That's a very easy trap to get into. Our thumb is long. If you take your thumb and you put it next to your index finger, tip to tip, you can see that the thumb on its own is almost as long as the index finger. Thumbs are not short. And that's one of the traps that you can get into, I have found, for myself especially. Lengthen that thumb. Thumbs are long. Okay. Alright, so now that I have this, I'm going to go ahead and remesh again, just because I've kind of stretched out my geometry a bit. Probably not too much is going to happen, nope. But that's okay. I'm going to start fresh every time. Okay, so now we can kind of mess around with some of the finer details, and the thing that I would recommend doing is going in with your clay strips. Actually, before I do that, we're going to go out of sculpt mode, and we are going to take this, go into edit mode, select all with A, and go over to mesh. We are going to set the normals, and we're going to recalculate them to the outside, just so that we make sure that our brushes are going to go the right way. We'll also go into object mode, and we are going to hit Control A, and we are going to apply the scale to this object. And what this is basically doing is it's saying that this is a 1-to-1 scale for this is a scale 0 or scale 1, I guess, for this. So yeah, so 1 is its default. So it won't measure that everything is warped, or sometimes it'll flatten out your brush or do weird things to your sculpt. So we want to make sure that everything is set to 0. Alright, and then I'm just going to go through, that's kind of a harsh line. I can go a little bit less and a little bit softer on the string. And we can just go through, and I'm going to just kind of draw the tendons coming from from the top of the hand, or from the fingers to the wrist, starting at the knuckle. And that'll be fine. Do that. And down here at the kind of wrist joint, I'm just going to draw a little bulb, because that is how wrists go. And this may look fairly extreme, but I assure you this is all good. Alright, and so then I'm going to draw on this side. I'm going to draw a little bit there, and a little bit there. We're just going to come around there, and that should be good. Okay, so we've got these kind of interesting muscular tendon marks. And what we're going to do with them is we're just going to smooth them out. Oh, that's a little too much smoothing. I'm going to take the smoothing down a little bit. So we're just going to smooth it out. And what this is going to do is it's going to make it look like the tendons are kind of under the skin. Kind of a big flat surface here. And we can see that that kind of looks like a bone on the joint there. And that's all good. I'm going to take this, do that, do just the same thing. Just smooth it out nice and even. And so we get this very faint kind of feeling that there's something going on under the surface, that there's something there. I'm actually going to take this a little bit down just a little bit, just so that something doesn't sit right with me with that. Okay. Take that in just a bit, just a bit. I like it. And you can just kind of tweak as you go too. I'm going to take the crease tool. I'm just going to give, oh, not there. Later. Take down the radius, and I am just going to give a little bit of a crease, just to define it a little bit more. And usually with modeling, you have kind of a rule about wear and tear. So just kind of generally when you're modeling things like leather, you want to wear it where it would naturally be stretched, or it would naturally be deform. And that, I don't know how that little guy got through. I guess be an artifact. Yeah. So with things like leather, for example, you would wear it and put little creases where there would be a lot of kind of shifting or cracking or weathering, and that kind of sells the organic feel to the leather. The same thing is true with skin. So there are places, if you look at your hand, where you bend your fingers more, you do things with your hand, and that creates creases, lines. And so we can kind of just follow the example. That wasn't a very good example of how lines in the hand go. And they, if you really look at your hand, if you really take the time, you might actually be surprised as to where you'll find those lines. They're often not where we think they would be. But our hand has a mind of its own, so we can kind of bring out those lines. And across here, the thumb has its own kind of crease and divot, and that goes up in there. So we can do that. Oh, no, that's not far up enough. See, this is why you have to pay attention to your reference, because even I don't necessarily know. There's a difference in art between modeling something and actually contouring it well, and guessing at where it is. A lot of times, what we do in art is we have to make sure we observe what we're modeling, what we're drawing, because our brain has a tendency to imagine. We're human beings, and um, when we imagine things, sometimes we get them wrong because our memory is not reliable. So we'll do that. We'll try to kind of get a good grip on. That was not a hand pun, by the way. See, I did it wrong. I imagined where it would be, and that was incorrect. So we're just going to kind of make these even knuckle marks on the finger. And for the most part, knuckle marks take up about a third of the finger length. That has some variation. That pinky looks downright stunted. But it does change the shape of the finger where you put those marks. So that's good. I think that looks pretty dang all right. I'm going to just put a little bit of more definition down there. And yeah, we'll call that golden. Okay, so we've got that. It's kind of a sausagey hand. I don't mind though. So now on the other side, what we're going to do is we are going to do a little bit of. I like to do the clay strip just because there are other ways that you can do this. You could inflate, you could draw, you could do a lot of things, but I like the clay strips. So I'm going to do the clay strips. I'm going to just make a little knuckle and a little knuckle just to kind of give it its shape. But I think largely you want to make sure that your knuckles are lining up with the creases, of course, unlike me, because I'm a bad boy. Yeah, you just want to do the little knuckle definition. I don't know. I don't think that's going to line up very well. Okay. It's up here more. There we go. And just kind of notice your own knuckles and look and see what that looks like. And we'll just add a little knuckle definition and some pretty major knuckle definition right here at the base, because that's important. Okay, so we've got these kind of nubbly nubs, which is fine. Do that there, and we'll do, how does this work? The thumb right there. Yeah, we'll do that. That's all good. Okay, perfect. All right, and then as always, we're going to go back over this with the smoothing brush. Just kind of give those knuckles a little bit of smoothness so they look like they are embedded in the knuckle rather than, kind of plopped on top. You can smooth around where the joint would meet the rest of the finger. That turned out very square. I might change that later. And yeah, again, just light smoothing just to kind of get it blended in. Ooh. And sometimes these artifacts appear. It's just kind of quirk of Blender. I don't know if there's a setting that I'm doing wrong, but sometimes they appear, but sometimes they don't. All right, knuckly knuckles. Okay. So very, very kind of dynamic and interesting hand. I am going to smooth that out. That's done. Oh, there's another one right there. Okay. And smooth this side just to make sure we've got everything that we need. That's a little too tall for my liking. Yeah, I don't like that. Yep, bring it in. There you go. Okay, so we're getting some form and some function to this hand. I do want to take the smoothing tool and I want to take it way down, but I do want to make sure that these parts seem to be very kind of focused. And I'm doing this on a decently low poly level for what I would normally do, just because I want it to be accessible to everybody, because some people don't have the best computers. They're working on a Optiflex that they can scrape together, and they're students, and I absolutely want to support that because it's important. You are an important person if you are learning how to do this stuff in the first place, and anybody who's actually learning should feel like they're a part of the team. But the next step that we're going to do is we're going to make the fingernails. And the way that we're going to do this is we're just going to kind of accentuate the discrepancy between the front pad and the back of the finger, like that. So the front is lower than the back. And we're just going to start there. And you can just do that by taking the front and moving it up. Take the front, move it up. There it is. Really not too hard to do. Take the front, move it up. It's kind of neat. And same thing with the thumb. Never neglect your thumbs. Thumbs are important. We can just kind of space it out so it's properly spaced. And one thing that I am is a habitual remesher. So I am going to remesh again. Shouldn't take too long. I forget that I'm doing this at a very low polygon count for sculpting. And I apologize if I fix things along the way that I see and I want to fix. Okay, that's good. And I'm actually going to go to object mode. I'm going to take this, right click on it. Well, I guess it depends on what your setup is. Mine is to match industry as much as possible because I also use stuff like Maya. But if not, you can go up to object and shade smooth. But for me, I'm going to right click, shade smooth. There you go. Just so that it gives me a more kind of finished idea of what it's going to look like. Again, this is kind of low poly for my liking. It's a very high poly model. In fact, actually, I'll put on the screen the statistics. So yeah, this is a very high poly model. But for sculpting, you want to do higher poly and then bake to lower poly with normals. So we'll go back to sculpt mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, before we were doing the clay strips, now I'm going to do the drop. And I'm going to give it a very small pen size. 13 pixels should do it. And basically I'm going to flex my own hand, and I'm going to look at the veins and where they go. One of them is going to go this way, go there. Just kind of subtly. And we can maybe put one up there that wraps around. And just kind of notice where things are. You can kind of do a more exaggerated version, because what we can do then is go back in here and just kind of lightly smooth it out, just so it looks like there are veins under the surface. I did this with a couple of sculpts, but you just want to have really light veins. Like we know they're there, but we don't want it to be like obvious. Like, oh, look at all those gross veins. Like we want it to be just kind of light. So we're going to do the fingernails now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the crease tool. I'm going to make a fairly small brush size. We're going to get nice and close. And we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to up the strength a little bit. We're going to go, well, that's not going to be enough. Up the strength and maybe 25. So we're going to go one side, two side, three side, four side. And we're going to do a bit of shading here. We're going to do a bit of sculpting here. We're going to try and make this as kind of squished on either side as possible to really define that. Then we're going to smooth it in the front, and we're going to definitely smooth it around the bed. And I'm sorry, this is fairly low poly. We can mess with it a little bit. Ugh, not digging this. And after you do this step, I would not advise remeshing, because if you do, it will destroy this. It's just too small. Okay. And you can see there's a very, very defined nail there. You can mess with it, bring it out just a little bit. And also I encourage you to smooth around the edge of the nail, because that just kind of brings it together. Makes it look like it's part of the finger rather than a separate piece. Alright, and so we do the same thing again up here. Just kind of give it that crease treatment. Do a little bit of defining there, just to try and make it sharp on some parts and smooth on others. There you go. One thing that I strongly recommend that you do is to actually give it some kind of pore definition. Usually that's at higher poly counts, but let's try it actually. So what I would do is I would go to your draw brush. I would go minus, because we're going to be taking away. We are going to go to our textures panel right over here. We're going to go in new texture, and we are going to go down to Voronoi. I don't know if I'm saying that correct. Voronoi. Voronoi is our happy place. Okay. We're going to take the size way down, and we're going to take the intensity down just a bit. And I'm going to go into colors because I want the ramp to be opposite. I'm actually going to increase the size just so I can see what I'm doing. Yes. All right. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And switch it. Switch the sides. Intensity, I'm going to go down like that. And we're going to take the size way down. Okay. See how fine of pores we can do. But yeah, you can do little pores. Probably take this strap out. you can do that on the hand where you would traditionally have pores. And just kind of make it either more or less gross. I think that's up for you to decide. And just do light sketching of pores. So you can do very fine details, and it can be baked into your sculpt later. Oops, that's gross. A little too intense. So if you're, say, doing this for a game project, you can bake those pores into the normal map, and you can be fairly low poly with your actual model. That's not how a thumb works, is it? And still be very cool. So there you go. You have some pores on the back of the hand. We could even keep it going and do some of our finer details. That's not fine enough. We want like 5 here. Do like some sculpting of different parts where the actual hand has been deformed. Can smooth it over a little bit too. Which is kind of neat. We can refine these. Do more there. The sky is the limit here. And so there you have it. A hand. Even tweak it more afterward, if you'd like. A hand. And so that is basically how to make a human hand that works photorealistically. I wouldn't say that this is totally photorealistic, but it gives you a good base as to how to go about starting to make hands. Because a lot of people will try to block model it out. I think that's the wrong way to go. I think organic is better. And please feel free to improve upon what I've shown you here. Feel free to share your art with me if you want. Please like and subscribe to this video if you found it helpful. So please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you found it helpful. And I hope you have a great time doing your art, and I hope to see some good things from all of you.